welcome back to Nintendo Everything Refresh, the weekly news show where we keep you up to date as to everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. I'm your host, Nick Serpa, and we are joined today by the wonderful Luiz Estrella.
Hello everyone, it's awesome to be back here after a while.
We missed you, Luiz. We're glad you're back.
I miss you guys too.
And we've got Nicolas today, who, frankly, I mean, we've heard enough of him at this point, right? I'm kidding.
It's fine. I don't matter.
No,
hello, I'm here.
No, Nicolas, I'm kidding. We love you. We're glad you're here too. So yeah, episode 28, and we're in the middle of the fall release season. Feels like pretty much every week now there's some type of big game coming out. Or some big news, and Nintendo's got some releases coming up. Right around the corner, we've got Bayonetta 3, so we're gonna kick off the show talking a bit about that. We got a look at some new gameplay this week, as well as some other news. It's a little bit of drama, but you know, what would a major game release be in 2022 without a little bit of drama? Am I right? We also got some more reporting, kind of following up on some of the contract work, problems that were going on at Nintendo of America earlier this year. So talk a little bit about that. We've got a cool collector's edition we want to highlight later in the show. We want to talk a little bit about Gravely Default. Why? Well, you have to listen and find out. And then towards the back half of the show, we're just going to highlight some of the games that came out this week. There was a surprising amount of interesting stuff, including a Switch exclusive that I think we mentioned in the past, but yeah, kind of a weird release. Anyways, we'll get to all that, but let's start off with probably the biggest story of the week for Switch fans, Bayonetta 3. We got a new 4-minute trailer at the start of the week, which on Nintendo America's YouTube channel is titled "Bayonetta's Everywhere?" ? Exclamation point. Is it a question or an exclamation? Are there
marketing?
Everywhere? Yeah, it's marketing. That's the right answer, Nicholas. Anyways, this trailer, first of all, anytime that you get a 4-minute trailer from Platinum Games, you're going to be in for a trip. And this one did not disappoint. I don't even know, how do you sum something like this up, Nicholas?
The multiverse of Bayonettas? There's a train chainsaw weapon? A train saw? I don't know, but it was awesome.
Wait, there was okay, I must have missed that. There's a chainsaw weapon that is also a train.
Yes, there's a chainsaw weapon that is also a train. It is insane. I'd have to double check if it was in this trailer specifically, but they showed it off. For some reason, they have a whole bunch of extra information on the game on Japanese sites and blogs and whatnot. And they had videos showcasing all the new weapons, and one of those is literally like this kind of miniature train that shoots out chainsaw blades, and you can also use to like have Bayonetta transform into like a half-trained person and run over people, or summon like a giant 48-yard long train to run over enemies.
Yeah, that sounds platinum.
That's normal.
It does, right?
Right.
I always love when these trailers for these just ridiculous action games. So this one starts off with like this like really like pensive, like almost like a melancholy like piano ballad with someone going like, oh, like opera singing in the background or whatever. Yeah. And it's like total like tonal whiplash considering just how like ridiculous this game is. Then like 30 seconds later, Bayonetta's like flying through like an office building, shooting her rocket boots or whatever. Then you got these giant frickin', what are they called? The homunculi? These like giant like demon things you control. So we actually got some previews of the game this week where people had actually gotten a chance to go hands-on with the game. And what I had heard from some of these previews, I wish I had gotten a chance to play it myself, but what I had heard was just that they're actually fairly interesting from a gameplay perspective. So you control them and Bayonetta kind of like not quite simultaneously like an astral chain, but like pretty damn close. The way it was described was like you kind of hold down the left trigger, and that kind of shifts control over to these giant creatures, and then when you let go, then you're controlling Bayonetta again. So that's something I'm interested to see how that will play out. We got to see a little bit of it in combat in this trailer, but I feel like that's going to be one of those things that's going to be pretty divisive when this game comes out, you know?
Yeah, I think I saw the preview for Game Explain. I think they mentioned that sometimes the camera is not the best during these combats, because at the same time the camera is showing this big monster, it's also showing Bayonetta here, because like it gives you the impression that Bayonetta is controlling the monster and not exactly the player. Like you are controlling Bayonetta, controlling the monster. So I can see that becoming a little bit not the best way to control that. And it would not be the first for Platinum games. I think sometimes the games get a little messy with the camera. I think Wonderful 101 is a great example of that. But I'm still excited just because of the sheer coolness of the concept, right? So it looks amazing on the screen. I don't know how much time the player will actually be battling like that, but I'm still excited to see how the concept works while you are playing the game.
Yeah, and I'm also curious to see, like, we're seeing like so much of this game at this point. Just seems like some absolutely massive boss battles in this trailer, like screen filling, just totally ridiculous. And I'm curious to see how those will play out with this type of new mechanic. Like, from what I've heard is if you want to ignore that new mechanic and you just want to play the game just as Bayonetta, you know, and you want to ignore the giant monster stuff, you can do that. But I don't know. I wonder if that would affect the experience at all. I guess we won't have to wait long to find out. But
yeah, I mean, it's only 2 weeks away.
Yeah, it's coming out pretty quick. Luiz, was there anything else that really caught your eye in this just absolute roller coaster of a Bayonetta 3 gameplay trailer?
I really like the trailer. I think it's the best one that we had yet. And I think you even mentioned the music. I think the music was one of the highlights, because I think it plays like 2 or 3 musics, and they all have voices. They are singing musics, and I really like the motion that they bring. Even though the game is completely ridiculous, the level of over the topness that all the music with the image brings, I think it's really nice, and it gives me the impression that in the story department the game will be a little more ambitious than the previous one. So I have some high hopes, not to be a emotional, profound story, but to be a fun story to actually watch. I think the previous games, even though they had a lot of cutscenes, I always consider the story to be a little bit, how can I say, confusing. Like I don't understand even though I played the first game, I played the second game, I don't actually get the Bayonetta lore a lot. So
I don't think anyone really knows what's going on in these games.
I hope it's a story that I can follow more easily on this one, I think.
Yeah. Okay, there is one thing I did want to mention, since no one else has brought it up yet. This could be considered a slight spoiler, but it was in the trailer, so if you're sensitive to that kind of thing, I say skip ahead, but just like a minute or two. But at the very end of the trailer, we have to see there's a side-scrolling perspective in some sequences of the game where like we see Bayonetta like basically in like this 2D platformer kind of style, like doing like stealth kills, and like when she like pulls someone into an air vent at one point. It's like, for some reason it was like kind of like Metal Gear vibes with like the HUD and stuff. It was like, I don't know what to make of that.
I got some Metroidvania vibes also from these little bits. It's actually it's not Bayonetta. It's actually Jeanne. Yeah, Jeanne. So I think this is kind of what she is doing in the story, while Bayonetta is doing in the story. At least that would be my guess. So yeah, it looks really fun and unexpected.
Yeah, I think it's very Platinum in terms of just having, you know, random, completely different gameplay style side mode. Like,
right.
it looks
that was
fun.
one of the things that people loved about Nier Automata, was just how often it was changing the perspective, and how every stage kind of felt like a different subgenre of game. And I haven't played it, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah, true. I just like to see that they're putting a lot of effort in the game.
Yeah. Well, we won't have long to wait, because Bayonetta 3 is right around the corner, And we all wish Dennis was here because Dennis is very excited about this game, and I'm sure he'd be fangirling over this trailer right now. But yeah, I'm sure we'll have more to talk about with that soon. We do have one other news story that came out this week about Bayonetta 3. Not as fun to talk about necessarily, but still interesting in terms of just like industry news and how the industry works or sometimes doesn't work. So one of the differences with this new Bayonetta game is that the original voice actor for the protagonist, Bayonetta, Hellena Taylor, she is not voicing the character in this game. Bayonetta is now being voiced by Jennifer Hale, who's a pretty big name voice actor. But a lot of folks were wondering, like, well, why isn't she back for this one? Why did this change happen? Well, one of the stories that came out this week, the original voice actor, Hellena Taylor, she came out and she basically said that she received what she called an insulting offer, like financially, for like what she would be paid to reprise her role. She said she was offered like $4,000, like on like her like second offer, like, and that the initial rate was even less, and that she was insulted by that, and that she didn't want to do it. And she actually came out on social media and she was telling fans that she wants them to boycott the game and instead donate their money to charity because she, does not like that whole situation. So it's an interesting insight into, I guess, probably a lot of the challenges that come through when you're not a union worker and you're trying to land these voice acting gigs. I don't know. What do you guys think of all this?
Yeah. Interestingly, she was actually part of a union, the same one that I think Jennifer Hale and some of the other actors are a part of.
Oh, really? Okay.
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird parts about this. I think for the most part, it's still awful, and it's still kind of it's still on Platinum's fault and Nintendo, depending on how much influence they had in this. Because, like, it isn't fair, right? This is a problem in the voice acting industry in general. There have been a lot of stories that have broken, especially recently, about just how horribly voice actors are paid for their work. And this is, it's not right.
Right.
Like,
and
it's just a bizarre situation.
I think there might be some folks out there listening to this and feeling like, $4,000 to some people may sound like a lot of money, but for what is basically the leading role in this major franchise that's a Switch exclusive that's being promoted to hell and back by Nintendo, it's really not, is what I've gathered from hearing what other voice actors are saying on Twitter. And now I should mention I did hear one person come out. I was reading an article and this one person commented and they were talking about how they were a voice actor on like Mass Effect 3 or something. And he was like, well, like if you're just recording a couple of sessions, this could be considered maybe like a reasonable rate. But Mass Effect 3 came out like what, over a decade ago at this point, and so I don't really know. The industry's changed a lot since then.
The other thing worth noting is that a lot of the other actors were, based on their minimum fixed union rates, would have been paid more. Even the side characters like John, the actors who play Jean and Luca, and especially Jennifer Hale, who is a pretty big name in the voice acting industry, would definitely have been paid more than $4,000. So it's kind of the question of, like, what, if it's not a money issue, like, what is the problem here? Did they just not want her to come back for some reason, they just kind of...
It sounds really weird, right? I was also... another professional who shared his experience was the voice of Rivali from Breath of the Wild. And he mentioned that at the time he received something along the lines of 2,000 or 3,000 for Rivali on Breath of the Wild, and other smaller characters that he also made a voice. And of course, Rivali is Breath of the Wild is a game without a lot of cutscenes, so I can imagine that he has a lot less lines than what Bayonetta would have being the protagonist of the game. But considering that he received 2,000 or 3,000, 4,000 sounds really, really low. for Bayonetta
for
3
a protagonist
2 days.
role. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I don't know. Another thing that happened was that Hideki Kamiya actually posted something kind of an answer on Twitter. But you know, it's Hideki Kamiya, and I imagine that the PR people on Platinum must be really not happy with the way that he says things. But he was basically saying that she was not saying the truth. I don't know if Platinum
or not the whole truth, perhaps.
Or not the whole truth, right? I'm not sure if Platinum will have probably will say something in the next days, or Platinum or Nintendo. I don't know exactly who's the one responsible for that, but it's just a sad situation overall, because I think most of the fans wanted the original voice to be in the game. I don't have anything against Jennifer Hale, and I think she's doing a great job. But yeah, it is a sad situation. I don't see myself boycotting the game for this, because personally, usually I think there's a lot of people involved in the process, in the actual game, and all of that. So it's not the kind of thing that I usually do. But I also respect those people who do not feel comfortable playing the game after hearing about that.
Yeah. I feel kind of similarly in terms of boycotting. I mean, it's. I wish this wasn't the case, but I feel like we live in a world where I feel like we live in a world in which pretty much every piece of entertainment that's produced nowadays, there's going to be some level of, like, someone is not happy with how the game was made, or, you know, the company should have done this differently. You know, there was crunch, there was, I mean, you name it. And this is not me being dismissive of it, but more so just like, man, if I boycotted every game that had some level of drama or problematic development attached, I probably wouldn't play a single game.
You'd have a lot more money, though.
Huh? And not only games, right? But imagine all the bad things that we heard about Amazon. How I'm going to stop buying from Amazon?
Right, movies.
Like, it's really hard.
Yeah, it's a hard situation. Another interesting take I heard on this was that, again, this is just people talking on Twitter. Like, it's not really worth that much most of the time. But someone was theorizing that, you know, maybe they undercut her in pay, like they lowballed her in offer because they didn't want to work with her anymore. Like, they wanted her to say no so they could work with someone else, you know? Maybe they were trying to get Jennifer Hale for some reason, and
that's really weird, yeah.
It is weird. It's also kind of bizarre because, look, I mean, again, she listed out, like, her credits and whatnot, and she is obviously influential in terms of being the original voice for Bayonetta.
Right.
But also she doesn't have any acting credits, apparently, since Bayonetta 2, or I guess technically Smash Brothers for Ryu, which is back in 2014, which is also just kind of an odd situation. It obviously doesn't, like, defend anything that's going on, but just kind of, I'm wondering if she kind of fell out of voice acting in general, and that's kind of part of this, or
yeah, maybe.
I don't know. Speculation, but
whereas, like, Jennifer Hale is in a lot of things, and she has quite the resume, so she would certainly be more expensive, I would think. But
yeah, I also thought the same thing. The thing that I found it a little strange was that she mentioned that they do a test with the voice actor to make sure that the actor didn't change her voice, if she's still okay for the role, and she said that she passed on that test.
Right, which is also, like, why, if they didn't want her back, they would have just had someone else, like, you know, get the audition. It's such an odd situation.
I think we'll hear more about this story in the future. I was thinking, like, the best situation in the world would be if she, like, we received a DLC with her voice and you could choose to change the voice to Jennifer Hale or Hellena Taylor. But I see that being very difficult, knowing how things are right now.
It's kind of, the bridges have kind of been burned, so to speak.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, it's
least fun, which is something nice for Platinum Games PR, is that apparently Kamiya himself has gotten his account either suspended or deleted on Twitter, so they don't have to worry about any more responses through that.
I mean, it's really hard to have a normal conversation on Twitter, right? So at the moment, everyone is either hating on Kamiya or either hating on the people that work on this. So I just don't like Twitter drama in general when that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah, I think that's the right take. Twitter drama, no thank you.
Yeah.
Although you wish he could kind of drop the whole, heel face, the heel facade when it comes to that. Drop the whole I block everyone attitude, because it feels like a little bit more important than that, but
Yeah.
is what it is.
So this next story kind of ties in with some of this. It's a little bit more behind the scenes news. So earlier this year, actually, I think it was one of the first really big stories that we talked about in this podcast. There was all this reporting that came out about how Nintendo of America was, their contract workers were kind of being mistreated, or were not really, given the same level of respect and opportunities as their full-time employees, and just all this stuff. I'm not going to recount all of it just because I don't think I'm going to do justice to the just incredible reporting that was done by Bloomberg and many other folks. But we do have a little bit of a follow-up. So one of the stories that came out around that time, so there's a contract worker at Nintendo of America whose name was Mackenzie Clifton. Well, still is her name, I presume. Her name is Mackenzie Clifton. So she filed a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board, which in America, they take on a lot of labor-related complaints, and they're involved with some union stuff and all that. And basically, she alleged that she had gotten fired for improper reasons. She said that she had asked management a question about their stance on unions during a meeting. And she claimed that because she had asked that question, she was reprimanded and she had gotten fired for asking about unions in the workplace, which I believe is illegal in the United States. So that was the basis of her complaint. Nintendo, for their part, they said that she was terminated because she had released confidential information. And some digging on that basically amounted to, she might have tweeted something super vague about working at Nintendo, but nothing along the lines of Metroid Prime 4 trailer dropping tomorrow, it was a lot of people were it sounds like they were looking for a reason to fire her, basically.
Just in today's build, someone somewhere must have deleted every other texture in the game because everything is now red. Just like pure red, it's very silly. I don't think that's really anything that could have warranted a firing.
Yes. Anyways, with all that said, the update on that story that we talked about originally was Nintendo and the contracting company and Mackenzie Clifton, they settled on all of that. And basically what happens is Clifton is going to get paid the money that she would have earned while she was working there, which was $30,000. And Nintendo has to post a notice that basically informs its contract workers of their rights, which is a good thing to do, in my opinion. So yeah, I guess everything worked out, but it's just, it's not been a great year for Nintendo of America's reputation as being this wholesome, employer of people.
Yeah.
Their follow-up statement wasn't exactly, I mean, I guess it's a pretty standard lawyer-esque statement, but it wasn't exactly very comforting.
Yeah, Nintendo does not like to put out statements either unless they absolutely have to, which you kind of get the sense that they did in this case. They would have preferred they not said anything.
At the end of the day, companies will be companies, right? I think it's a little eye-opening to us that like to enjoy those products, but to also to differentiate what it is the companies and their interests and what they will put as their first interest at the end of the day. I think it's at least a solution for the person. I think it's great that they receive a compensation for this and for all the situation. I still hope that in the future we can see more discussions about unionizing on the gaming world, because I feel like we've been talking about people doing voices for the dub work for video games, and I think we see the difference between when people is making voices for movies and for TV shows, and they receive a lot less when it is a video game. So in general, I feel that a lot of areas in the video game world still needs a little more attention for the professionals that are making a tons of work and are not being compensated in the way that they should.
Right. Yeah, and we've also talked in the past about how just like, yeah, this is not even just like even a game industry problem. This is just an issue with just how contractors are treated,
right.
Unfortunately, and it's a bigger problem than just Nintendo. But when we do get a look at like how Nintendo is operating and it ends up being something like this, it's kind of shocking because it's just not the image that people have in their head of this big company that's affiliated with all these family-friendly things and so on.
Yeah, it feels like they have a hard time to discuss those more job-related problems. I think a lot of the times with the branch here on North America, I see a lot of those issues. We don't hear a lot from Japan. I don't know exactly how things work that, but yeah. It's like a culture.
Right.
It's so bizarre too, because like I don't think there's been anything for Europe either. It's really only just been Nintendo of America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to discuss all that's. I the way that people talk about work in the America, I see, for example, a lot of people ask Reggie about unions and all that stuff, and I see he kind of talking against unions. And I don't know, this is because I live in a more communist country than in the United States, but here unions are like the norm, right? I don't see if someone is talking against unions, it would be really weird here where I live. So I see like a little bit of that more liberal mindset
just
of
capitalist
the United
mindset,
States. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. The only thing you can really hope for at this point is that this isn't just, they don't just say, okay, we sell with this person, we'll leave it at that this actually does promote active change within the company. But
yeah.
We can only just wait and see for that.
Yeah. This is a little tangential, but when you guys just mentioned Nintendo of Europe, it is really weird. We really don't hear anything like ever about like Nintendo of Europe and just like how it operates or functions. Do they assist with any like game development there, or do they solely just do marketing and distribution?
I don't know. I think they have some hand in that, but
that company
really like
Nerds isn't for Nintendo Europe, a developer that Nintendo has. I'm not 100% sure. But they
do some testing at least, but
yeah, they do testing, and for example, they do the voice work for Xenoblade. Everyone knows that because Xenoblade has all the accents from the from the English language.
Right.
They also handle Xenoblade pre-orders just as poorly as the American ones. So
that's a global
that's just
issue. Oh no! Don't get
universal constant.
It is. I just did a quick Google search about Nintendo of Europe, and it's kind of funny. I'm putting this photo in our chat. Apparently, their headquarters, their new one that they just built like 2 years ago, looks almost identical to the one in Japan.
Yeah.
Just this big white monolith of a building.
I'm pretty sure Nintendo basically uses the same projects and they just change it to fit the terrain.
Yeah, probably. Oh, I'd really like to like see the inside of one of these buildings sometimes, just to like. I just want to. If there's not like at least like one warp pipe in the building somewhere, I'd be disappointed.
Honestly, from the little bits that you can see sometimes in photos and stuff like that, it's all white. A lot of white tables and white cubicles, and just a normal office, to be honest.
I think certain studios might kind of like touch up things. Like I know Game Freak has done that with certain of their studios and whatnot, but I mean, like Luiz is saying.
I know that like in the first floors you have like a cafe, and there's also a store in the one from Nintendo of America. So like you have those fun stuff in the not working areas, but usually the offices are what you would expect.
Yeah. Can't all be fun and games, I guess.
Yeah.
But let's talk about some fun and games. Let's talk about something a little more fun. This is something I like collector's editions in like theory, but I really don't buy that many of them just because I don't have like a lot of physical space to just put random toys and stuff. But this one just looked really cool, so I wanted to highlight it for a second here. So we learned earlier this summer, actually, I had the chance to interview when I was at Summer Games Fest. I interviewed, I always butcher her name. It's spelled M-A-J-A, but I think you say it like Maya. Maya Moldenhauer. She's the studio director for Studio MDHR that makes Cuphead. And it was around the time where she said like they were working on a physical release of the game. Well, we actually learned, we got some more info on the physical release earlier this fall, but we just learned this week that we're also getting a really just cool looking collector's edition for this game. That comes with like a marionette version of Cuphead. Like, are you guys seeing this thing? That thing just, it's huge. It looks like it comes like with like a whole like box and everything for it. That like looks like a little
this
stage.
whole frame.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
I mean, this game has so much personality.
I just wanted to say this thing is cool.
I love the trailer that they did. They always do those trailers with some nice animations and stuff like that. Here they use marionettes, so it just looks awesome.
Yeah. It also comes with, it comes with the game and the DLC on one cartridge, which that's pretty cool. We don't see that nearly as much as I would like. Mwah. Yeah. Yes. It also comes with a hand crank music box, which I presume will play music from the game. 6 Cuphead funnies, which I don't really know what those are. They look like little like almost like
joke
cartoon
cards, I think,
strips or like
yeah,
something along those lines. It's kind of hard to see from the image they gave us. An individually numbered membership card. I wonder what the membership card is for. Are you a part of a club or something?
The secret club, yes.
Here I can. It's written. It's a registered Cuphead pal.
Registered Cuphead what?
Pal. Yeah.
Pal. Oh, all right. That's cool. So I wonder,
you
like,
can enter a parasocial relationship with Cuphead.
Oh no! Oh no! I don't want to go down this rabbit hole.
I was looking here, like the box art is a little boring, but I was seeing that the reversible one is really nice, so it's okay.
Oh, where's the reversible one? I don't see that anywhere.
It's like
it's the blue art. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, I feel like we used to get reversible box art so much, and then I remember like when the Switch first came out. And people were opening the cases, and not only were they just empty, but like there was nothing. You could see through the plastic, and there wasn't anything on the other side of the art. People were like, "Oh, this is a missed opportunity." But then slowly but surely, we did start getting more and more reversible box art. You love to see it.
Yeah, because we lost the manuals, right? So at least a nice reversible
manuals.
Art is cool.
Yeah. This is probably the greatest tragedy of the last decade. Let's be honest. Video game manuals.
I mean, it's for forests and all of that.
Objectively, right? Like,
objectively speaking. Well, and at the very least, like, gosh, one of the things I loved about like the 3DS and the Wii U was that even if you didn't always get like a physical manual, you could open up the digital manual from within the console, which actually comes in handy sometimes. Like, I distinctly remember times I'd be playing through something and I'd like be trying to figure out like, oh, like, am I missing something with the controls here? And I could just pop it open, and you just don't see it that often anymore.
Yeah, it's sad. That was a really nice feature. It's a shame they removed it for Switch. Although honestly, the one thing I remember most of it is for Xenoblade Chronicles X. There was like probably like a 50-page manual in there with information on all of the game's mechanics that no in-game tutorial told you. So if you want to know how to play that game, you have to get reading.
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But also makes a lot of sense.
Some Switch games still have that. It's basically when you click on the menu, it opens like websites on the hidden. The Switch can open websites, but they just don't permit that you use it. But sometimes some games have it. I don't know if Luigi mentioned. A Nintendo game used it. I don't remember exactly what.
Yeah, no, I do remember that being a thing when I was reviewing 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim earlier this year. There was like a web-based manual.
Yeah.
So, hey, it's better than nothing, but if you don't have internet, then you're kind of screwed, though.
Yeah,
so.
True.
Which is kind of a problem with the handheld gaming console for some people. But yeah, so anyways, I just wanted to shout out that cool collector's edition. I don't know, did they say how much it costs, though? It doesn't look cheap. 200.
It's 200. So, get your buckaroos ready.
You can buy 10 copies of the Cuphead game for that much money.
I mean, people will buy it for the marionettes, right?
Yes.
Like, for the super fans out there, this is, this is what you can get to really show your
waiting for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of miss the time that Nintendo would do those big collection ones, because nowadays I feel that it's always the same thing with the art book and like the last one that we had for the Xenoblade. I miss like having a vinyl or something like a action figure or something like that.
Yeah. I think one of the last big ones that they did was probably the Breath of the Wild one, right? Since that came with a figurine and like a case.
Oh, right. I think I remember.
Yeah, you're right. I think it did. But yeah, on the other hand, if they don't put out these amazing collector's editions, then I save more money and I can buy more actual video games. So,
yeah, that makes sense.
You can't have a marionette on your shelf then.
That's true. But then also that might just scare the crap out of me in the middle of the night. Like you wake up and you see like a Cuphead marionette hanging from the ceiling, just staring at you with its
swaying in the wind,
eyes, swaying in the wind, spilling its cup contents everywhere.
It's a little nightmare-inducing.
The important question is: the Cuphead marionette, is it hollow? Can you put things in the cup? And
God, I hope so.
Like an absolute monster.
I don't know.
I hope the head is an actual mug, and you can actually use it as a mug.
That's what I'm saying. I need to
missed opportunity there.
It don't seem to be a really durable material. Just looking from here, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, I don't even know how to transition, so we're just going to go into the next one. Hey, speaking of games, have you guys heard of Bravely Default? That's my transition.
What is that?
For this segment. What is that? Yeah. So, gosh, I still can't. It doesn't ever feel like Bravely Default 2 came out. Like that game is just feels like a footnote.
It didn't make a big splash. Yeah.
It did not, no. But some people liked it. I think Dennis played it. I think he enjoyed it.
The general consensus is that it's a good game, but it doesn't do anything, super innovative or.
I think it's one of those games that people liked it, but they didn't love it.
Yeah, it's a good RPG. That's about the extent.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm bringing it up is not just because Bravely Default is a good game. It's because the producer came out earlier this week, and it's the 10th anniversary of the Bravely Default franchise. And the producer was talking about the possibility of a remaster for the first entry. He says it's something that he knows the fans would want, and he's expressed some interest in it. But he didn't have anything solid to confirm, but he sounded like he was interested in doing it. The big challenge, another thing that just he mentioned, is that it's porting 3DS games to other consoles is not necessarily the easiest thing.
Right.
And apparently, I never played the original Bravely Default games on 3DS, but I guess they leaned pretty heavily on Street Pass and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's. I don't think the second screen would be much of an issue, but it had some AR functionality, which, no spoilers, but ended up being pretty integral to the story. So that would be kind of tough. It's a weird thing, but it's interesting. And it also has both Bravely Default and Bravely Second have a lot of Street Pass functionality. In terms of you kind of have, from what I recall, a village that you build with the Street Pass characters that you get from other people. And there's this whole system where you fight special bosses that are tied to that system that you get by encountering more people through Street Pass. There's also a mechanic where you can recruit other people's characters, sort of, and they help you in battle. They went really deep into Street Pass for some reason, so they have to rework a lot of those systems.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I think the other answer is they should just put Street Pass on the Switch. You cowards. Just do it already. But yeah, it's probably it like requires like actual hardware that I don't know if the Switch has. But yeah, no, it's an interesting idea. On one hand, I feel like those games like they just seemed like a perfect fit for the 3DS. I don't really know if the experience of playing them on something like the Switch would be quite the same, just because of the type of games that they are. Like everything from like just like the camera angles in those games to like the art style, all of it was very much made for that platform. So I feel like it'd have to be a pretty substantial overhaul to make it feel like a modern game.
I think they would have to do something like put the first game in the engine of the second one for this to actually work, because I think this is the kind of game on the 3DS that relies a lot on the fact that the resolution on the 3DS was really low, so the models were really simple. Even Bravely Default 2 on the Switch, it still looks a little bit like a 3DS game, right? Only on 8.
Because they had the same art style, which kind of didn't land for everyone.
And the chibi characters and stuff like that, which, to be honest, sometimes I found it really beautiful, but in other scenes I found it a little bit weird to look at it. I wonder if it is a good idea, if there's enough audience for this remaster. I'm not 100% sure.
I mean, that's hard to say. I don't know exactly how popular Bravely Default ended up being. I mean, it got a direct sequel with Bravely Second and like a spiritual successor with Bravely Default 2, so it can't have done too bad if Square was willing to let them invest in that.
Yeah.
And they have been doing well with like Octopath and Triangle Strategy as well, since it's the same team behind those.
Yeah, and he said they're planning another one too. It's a couple years out, is what he said, but they want to do something else with the franchise in the future, so seems to do well enough to meet their sales expectations, I guess.
Yep, it's true. I mean, I don't know. I feel like regardless, we probably wouldn't get that next. Because at this point, he's kind of just talking about the remaster, but he already had talked about the chance of the possibility of the next game being produced last year. So I feel like they probably already started work on something else, and this is just kind of like, in the future, would a remaster be the thing we do after our next project, kind of?
Yeah, because to me, I think the ideal world, they would make the remaster before Bravely Default 2, But
it is a different. I mean, it's not. At least it's not directly connected narratively.
Right.
So it doesn't need that as much as it might have otherwise. But I agree, it would be nice to have. They would really need to do it if they're going to make a Bravely Third, like a direct successor to the second game. It gets very confusing with naming conventions.
Yeah, no, that would make sense, which is probably why it won't happen. Oh, man. Well, yeah, in the meantime, I'm sure Square Enix will announce at least 5 more RPGs between those two games.
I mean, Octopath 2 is coming out.
Yeah, Octopath 2 is just a couple months away at this point.
February. That's their next game.
I think I'll play that one before playing the first one, because it just looks very exciting to me. The second Octopath Traveler.
It's separate universes as well for this, so again, don't have to worry about any story connections.
Jump right in. Very cool. All right, well, that is on the radar. Let's talk a little bit about a game that had some problems this week, and you'll never guess what it was. It's Nintendo Switch Sports, everyone. That's I know. This doesn't. I know any game could have these problems, but Nintendo Switch Sports it's been a whole saga. They delayed golf, as we discussed. Golf was supposed to come out in the fall. Apparently the golfing was too advanced, and now the golf is coming out later, even though it's just all the same courses from the Wii version of golf, just made prettier. But I digress. Anyways, they put out a patch, like a new version of Nintendo Switch Sports this week, but after they put it out, the game was crashing while it was loading matches. It was affecting not just online play, but also the offline modes in the game as well. And then there were additional issues with playing online that they just turned it off. Like you couldn't play online for a little bit. I guess the patch was like mostly intended to like combat cheaters, but it certainly did that just by making it so people couldn't play the game.
Instead, the patch just decided to fight everyone, putting up hands and just fighting everyone.
Yeah.
It's such a It seems like something is going on with the game where something is being mismanaged. Because I think this kind of situation, like you said, it can happen to everyone, but I don't know that we've ever really had an incident this bad where the update straight up had to be like removed from a Nintendo game. So like, because these seem like pretty glaring flaws that probably would have been caught in testing if it just completely crashed the game.
I mean,
say what you will about like some of Nintendo's games launching with kind of bare bones content, but at least for the most part nowadays that you're gonna get something and it's gonna work.
They always
have,
yeah.
Right.
And it's just I can't think of any other instances where an update was just so flawed. They just rushed it out and it ended up making things that substantially worse that they had to straight up cancel the update. And between that and the fact that Golf got delayed, which is also just, like you said, it's a bit odd. Kind of makes me wonder if there's something going on in the studio where they're just not managing things correctly. But
man,
that's just speculation.
I think the team behind Switch Sports like the worst programmers in Nintendo because I remember reading the interview and they spent like 5 years developing Switch Sports, which basically the first half they were developing a completely different game. Then they had to restart. Then they spent a lot of time trying to convert the Wii controls to the Switch controls. So it just seems a little. At the end of the day, the game that we received is basically Wii Sports 2, and then they have to delay Golf. So just,
but like not even. It's Wii Sports 2 was like Wii Sports Resort.
Yeah,
this feels like closer to like a slightly improved version of Wii Sports Club, like
a weird port in some sense.
It's just it does feel like a weird outlier, a game that shouldn't be this complicated or have this many things wrong with it, but here we are.
But I mean, listen, on the bright side, you can put on like a squirrel suit and like you can dress like a burger, so I mean, your complaints are invalid.
Those are selling points.
I had hopes for the game to receive other sports, but at this point, I think if they manage to get Golf ready, it would be
a small miracle. It'll probably be it'll be a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe situation where just like they put out the update, that's the end of it, and then like 5 years from now, when the Switch 2 is already out and getting games, they're gonna be like, oh, we decided to update Switch Sports. We added in
badminton,
ping pong.
It plays the same as golf or as tennis.
We finally managed to get basketball working on this thing.
Yes.
We couldn't figure out how to shrink the rackets for table tennis.
It took us 5 years, but we finally did it. Yeah.
Oh man.
Anyways, although I will say it's fun. I've had some fun with Switch Sports, despite
definitely, for sure.
Worth $60? But
I mean, it was 50, right?
Yeah. 50, excuse me. Yeah.
Worth come on.
Oh, now you're talking.
I mean, I guess if you were to really math it out, bowling can be pretty expensive. So you could either go have like one night out of like really fun bowling with drinks and food and all that, or you could have an infinite amount of Switch Sports bowling, which may not be as fun, but you get lots of racket-based sports.
Not sure about that.
And squirrel suits. Yeah. Anyways, let's talk about some of the games that have come out this week. Not a ton of like earth-shaking games, but some interesting things that we wanted to at least mention. So this first one I want to mention just because it's kind of weird. So it's called NASCAR Rivals. It's a NASCAR racing game. What's interesting is that it is a Switch exclusive. Like, it's not coming to anything else. And it looks like a fairly big budget project. I mean, I watched like the gameplay trailer and looking at some of the screenshots, and it all looks like pretty good. Maybe because it was only developed for Switch. Yeah. The environments look good. The cars look good. It looks like fairly arcadey racing, which I know is not everyone's thing. It doesn't look like a hardcore simulation or anything, but I don't know. I'm just always interested when we get just random Switch exclusives. I'm like, okay, sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how long until these get ported to other systems, right? Like, not to be pessimistic, but I do think there's probably decent odds of that happening, because we see that happen with quite a few third-party games. And like you said, it's just very bizarre that this would be Switch exclusive. That it would be Switch exclusive. It's not like Nintendo is like the home of NASCAR, right?
Right, especially like outside of America, I don't think a lot of people really care. Even in America, not a lot of people care about NASCAR. So it's kind of weird.
I mean,
but like on their website, they're like, this is the game of the 2022 NASCAR racing season, and it's only on Nintendo Switch. And you're like, all right. But yeah,
probably not going to be the Need for Speed equivalent or the Horizon equivalent.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Because, NASCAR is basically just running in circles, so it's not really exciting. But I'm seeing the Switch gameplay, and the graphics they're not super impressive, but definitely looks passable for a Switch game that tries to be like realistic, right?
Yes.
It was technically a licensed game
on the Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I felt like it's worth pointing out because I don't feel like we get a lot of realistic racing games on the Switch. We get a lot of kind of like cartoony style games, but
speaking of which,
might be of interest. Yeah. Speaking of which, one of the other games that came out this week was this is really just gonna like get people lining up around the block. Nickelodeon Kart Racers 3 Slime Speedway.
Baby, yes,
yes. Yeah, I guess I didn't even realize they had made a second one, but yeah, there's a third one out now. And
they're making a lot of this one. I think all the 3 ones are on Switch, right?
I think so.
Yeah. This game does not look great.
What? No.
I love the idea of like a Nickelodeon themed kart racer, but the gameplay for this game just looks like very just like janky and not smooth or fun to play. And I'm looking on the Steam page for this game, and it has 10 reviews and mostly negative ratings. So doesn't seem like a barn burner over here. I wish to report.
Is Nickelodeon still a thing? People still watch the channel?
I would assume so.
Probably, yeah. They're still around.
I think a lot of these games are trying to get more people on the nostalgia factor, right? I see a lot of classic characters. And there's even characters from Avatar. So
right.
It does feel like
the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And,
right.
It does feel like Nickelodeon has been a bit on a binge of making kind of just churning out releases in a bunch of different genres. Just to try and, I don't know if it's to try and make a quick buck or like,
yeah.
I mean,
It's kind of like what
honest,
Disney's been doing too. Like what we talked about, they're just trying to get their characters out there as much as they can now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm watching the PS5 version, but I don't think the game looks bad. It looks a little generic, maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it looks bad, but I just if you're gonna put out a kart racer and you're in the same league as Mario Kart, like, I don't know, man. I've just been burned too many times. I was really excited for Chocobo GP earlier this year, and that just left a bad taste in my mouth.
That was a huge disappointment, yeah.
Yeah, and after that, I was just like,
that one from Disney already came out.
Speedstorm? I think?
Yeah.
It's coming out soon.
Okay, I think that's one I'll try out because it's free, but I also don't have high hopes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one they're asking like $50 for, and I can't see myself.
Yeah, no, that's a bit much.
It's a bait for those fathers that are not aware.
Yeah. That's a whole Switch Sports right there, $50. Well, here's kind of a weird one. It's Dragon Ball The Breakers, and I don't really know how to describe this other than Dragon Ball Battle Royale. Is that basically what it is?
Well, it's an asymmetric gameplay thing where, like, one person plays the role of the villain, and everyone else plays as, like, generic... Well, not generic mooks, but, like, you know, not very strong Dragon Ball characters that have to run away from the villain, which I think is a neat premise, if nothing else.
This one looks really bad. Just watching at the trailers, maybe it's those games that, even though they are kind of ugly, they are fun to play with some friends, but
visually it's not great.
Yeah.
I don't know that much about Dragon Ball, honestly, so I'm not really... I'd be curious to know, like, where the fan base was at with this one.
I think it's funny because it has some of the B characters, right? It's not like with Goku and stuff like that.
The idea is you're playing as, like, the people that have basically no powers trying to not get murdered by all the strong villains, which, again, I think is a neat idea. I don't know
it's pretty dark
execution.
You know, like...
Yeah.
It's kind of like an out there premise for what I understand is, like, not like the darkest anime by any means.
I mean, it's certainly unique.
Yeah.
I know that they've held several betas. I don't know for sure. I don't think they've like leaned in super dark, right? Like, I don't think there's any gore or anything. I think it's more so just kind of generic Dragon Ball style cartoony. There's probably some humor in terms of, like, certain characters that are just naturally more just one-off humor characters.
I wish Dennis was here because I think he played the beta a little bit, and I'd be curious to hear what he thinks about it. But...
If I recall correctly, he had said that he ended up not liking it as much as he hoped he would, which is why I think he passed on reviewing it. But
gotcha.
Yeah. We'll see.
Anyways, interesting oddity if you're a Dragon Ball fan. Might be worth checking out, but probably read some reviews first and see if it's your jam. I usually stay away from multiplayer things personally. Not all the time. Like, I enjoy multiplayer games, but this just seems like one of those games that's going to have its server shut down in like 3 years once the license expires.
Totally.
About.
3 years might be generous, but
3 years might be generous. Oh my
You're
God,
gonna have like 12 people out there. They're gonna be really upset about that.
Yeah. Okay. Another tangent I'm gonna go on here. But one of the things that came out this week was so there's that Final Fantasy VII like battle royale game that they had.
Yep.
It was called Final Fantasy VII: The First Soldier. It's only been out like a year, and they're shutting it down. It's like a game with like the Final Fantasy IP attached. It's just gonna disappear into the other.
Who could have seen that coming? To be honest.
Who would have guessed? Yeah. I feel like that game might have done a little bit better if they had ported it to Switch, because right now it's only on mobile phones, and I don't really know a lot of people who want to play a game like that on their phones, but I guess they're out there, but maybe not for Final Fantasy.
It's also just such a weird tonal mishmash of this is specifically Final Fantasy VII, and you fight monsters and use magic and stuff, and also it's like a battle royale. It's just like a straight up battle royale. That was just a weird kind of experiment in general.
I think Square Enix finally discovered the limits of Final Fantasy VII as a brand, and it is to make an online game. It doesn't work.
I don't know, Luiz. They're I wouldn't count them out. I mean, we still got
Final Fantasy VII cards will be the limit.
Yeah, we still have like 2 more games in the Final Fantasy VII remake trilogy coming out, so that's going to be at least another 4 or 5 years.
Those are exciting. Let's be honest.
Right, but they've got to fill that 4 or 5 year slot with like as many spin-offs as possible.
Right.
We might have more if they decide to remake the compilation stuff. Like they're remaking Crisis Core. If they remake like Dirge of Cerberus, that could be something else, I guess.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Not that I think many people would want that, but
I mean, I'd play it just out of morbid curiosity.
I mean, these days it just feels as if anyone asks Square Enix if they can make a game, and Square Enix always says yes. So basically,
will it have farming sim elements in it?
If so, yes.
Publish that.
Yeah. Okay. 2 more games I want to shout out. We'll get through these pretty quick. This one is pretty cool. So it's called Kamiwaza Way of the Thief. And this is a port of a PS2, like an actual PlayStation 2 stealth action title. I'd say it's a stealth action title. Supposedly like very story heavy and very like cinematic for its era. I don't really know much about this game, but it's just kind of a weird, like kind of random port. And so that makes me curious about it.
It's not like a full... It definitely looks like a PS2 port.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't really seem like that much of a remaster. It just seems like they're kind of bringing it to modern platforms. So, which I'm like, I wonder why. Like, were a lot of people asking for this game or something? Is this like some big hidden gem that I just don't know about? Yeah.
It's a really different kind of game, right? I think it's a stealth kind of experience, and it's probably one of those games that got forgotten on the PS2 era, and there's probably a niche out there who's like, finally.
It gave me very early like Shenmue and maybe like proto Yakuza vibes in a way.
Yeah, same.
In terms of like sort of goofy, like but realistic. I don't know. It looks like a thing.
It has the Japanese vibe of these games.
Yeah. It does. It also like kind of reminds me of Tenchu. Has anyone here ever played a Tenchu game? Those were, we haven't gotten one in a long time, but those were a series of very good stealth games that were like kind of like ninja like stealth games set in Japan, and there was like a Wii exclusive one at one point, and like it was a great franchise. But this kind of gave me some vibes of that.
I think it might be published by the same people. Or developed. I have to check.
I'm not sure, but yeah. Anyways, it's on my radar for sure. I probably won't pick it up anytime soon, just because there's a lot of games coming in the pipeline. But yeah, looks fun. And then one last game I want to talk about that Dennis actually did just put out a review for, so go check that out. Chaos Head Noah and Chaos Child. They're weird names, but these are games in the science adventure series of visual novels. Chaos Child is a port over from what was originally a Vita game. But the big one is Chaos Head Noah. This is the first time that this game has ever been released outside of Japan, and it's like the first entry in this series, so it's supposed to be a great place to start. And these are very dark games, and they're very violent and have a lot of content that is definitely not good for kids. But if you like darker mystery style games and you like visual novels, these games should definitely be on your radar from what I've heard. Dennis had a lot of good things to say about this one.
There's definitely an audience for that. I see a lot of people who enjoy those visual novels that tackle really heavy themes and stuff like that. This was the game that had a little bit of drama on Steam that was kind of censored, stuff like that. I don't know how this thing turns out, but always impressive to see how liberal Nintendo is right now with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, the game almost didn't get a release on PC at all. It was going to release on Steam, but then Valve didn't approve it, they said, because of its content. But they changed their mind at the last minute, so it is on Steam. You can buy it there as well. But yeah, for a while it was looking like the Switch was going to be the only place you could play this game, which is crazy.
Can you imagine? Yeah.
Yeah, what a world. But yeah, have been hearing great things about that one, and folks seem to be positive on it. So go check out Dennis's review at nintendoeverything.com, and let us know what you think if you play it. I'd love to hear more impressions of this game. All right, so that just about wraps up our show for the week. But before we go, we're going to end with our classic segment, What Have We All Been Playing This Week? Luiz, let's start with you, since you've been out and about in the world for a while. What have you been sinking your fingers into on your controller?
I think 3 weeks ago, I'm not sure, I bought the... Please, everyone listening, don't judge me on that, but I bought the GTA trilogy, the GTA trilogy on the Switch, which everyone know it was kind of a mess at release, and it still is kind of a mess. But to be honest, those games are so fun, so good, that even if those ports are not the best, they still are super fun to play. I just finished the first one, which is GTA 3, and now I started Vice City. And they've been, honestly, after all the updates, they've been super okay to play on Switch. The frame rate, it's 30 FPS. It's relatively stable unless you are like doing crazy stuff like using a tank to explode all the cars in the city, stuff like that. Then the game will start to go to the frame rate to start to go down. But usually easily playable, and I prefer the aesthetic of the originals. Here a lot of things look really ugly because they tried to recreate with artificial intelligence, and not everything looks as good. But overall, I think considering that's the only way to play those games on Switch, I think it's worth the price that I paid, which was like it was a 50% discount. So I consider it to be a reasonable price for a game like this. The updates really turned this to a better experience overall. But yeah, they are not very different. If you play those games, you already know. If you never played, they are super fun. They are like mindless fun. The story is completely crazy. A lot of unexpected stuff happens, and usually, but it's just a fun game to play. I consider them to be like comfort experiences to me. After finishing a huge JRPG like Xenoblade, to play GTA, those old GTAs, it's almost relaxing to me.
Yeah, going back in time a little bit. Yeah, man, you know, I remember when that game was on sale. It was just a couple weeks ago, and I was really close to picking it up because I thought I had heard that they were running a little bit better now, but I had still heard that they had some problems, so I ended up not getting it. But it sounds like overall, I mean, you're saying that you feel like the game is running well enough on Switch to finally recommend it at this point?
Yeah, it's super fun to play on portable modes, and it's totally playable, for real. Like, it's not looking amazing or anything like that, but I think it's a really close experience to the originals on the PS2. But now you can play portable, and of course, you have some effects from the Unreal Engine and stuff like that, but overall it's the same experience.
Yeah,
that's nice to hear.
That is good to hear because, like, you really can't play these games portably anywhere else. Like, even like on the Steam Deck, like I was like, oh, maybe I can play them on there and get the best experience, but they're not on Steam. You would have to get them through the Rockstar Games launcher, which is not like natively supported on Linux. So then you have to either like find a workaround, you have to install Windows. It's just not like what I want to do. So I was like, oh, I really want the Switch version to be good. So you might have just convinced me, Luiz. I might be picking those up sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I just don't recommend to pay full price, but on a discount, definitely worth it.
Even still, I mean, like, man, like 3 games for $60. I mean, they may be older games, but I can justify that potentially if I really was impatient.
They are all good fun. Yeah,
that's good to hear. What about you, Nicholas? What have you been diving into this last week?
Nothing super exciting. I think the last few weeks I've kind of just been settling down with Splatoon 3 and just doing stuff more casually. I might try and start another bigger game soon, but again, nothing too big. I did play a good portion of the new DLC for Xenoblade 3 that came out Friday. So that was pretty neat, just kind of going back in and revisiting the game a bit.
Anything like substantial or surprising about that? Have you played as the new hero at all?
Yes. I would ask something like that, yeah.
Yes. So the DLC, it doesn't add as much as some of the Xenoblade 2 DLC waves did. Basically, it adds in one new hero, and it adds in the challenge mode, which is just a series of more difficult challenge battles. There's probably like 10 to 20 of them. I didn't count specifically. And the challenge battles themselves can reward you with different stronger accessories and also the alternate outfits, which in this case is all swimsuits, because of course it is.
Because it's a JRPG, so
of course it is. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was neat. New character is fun. They have some interesting lore implications.
Okay, I'll ask about that.
Although, as a class themselves, it's nothing as crazy as some of the... Like, Xenoblade 2 had some DLC characters that were added in, DLC Blades, that were absolutely insane and were by far the best in the game. Like, they completely power-crept everything else. That's not really the case here. they're an interesting class, but nothing as strong. So they're just kind of neat to mess around with. And the challenge battles, yeah.
Did you find the new hero to be annoying? Because a friend of mine said that she was a little bit annoying. I don't know towards your impression.
So yeah, it's definitely they're like kind of small child energy, pretty high pitched voice and very excitable, and they have knock-on speech patterns, which is just you love it or you don't. Personally, I thought it was okay because you kind of learn to deal with it. And there are some genuinely cute moments, but your mileage will definitely vary.
All right.
Follow-up question. Does the new character's neck make them a bigger target, or does it make them? Does it have any gameplay benefits?
Sadly, the neck does not influence gameplay in any way.
Got it. Do you think
quite
the
logical.
really just shockingly thin torso makes them just like way more vulnerable?
I mean, they're actually a tank character, so.
Oh, interesting. Right,
yeah.
Well,
for what it's worth,
every day, folks.
It is a very weird model, partly because the character is like an android. It does look better in game than in still screenshots. I feel
that's good to hear.
But I definitely agree that just like looking at it, it's a bit weird.
Yeah.
Do we know? Just a question as a Xenoblade fan too, because do we know if she is designed from Masato Saito?
No, she's designed by. They mentioned who the artist was, but it's a separate artist that actually designed her, which is part of why she ends up looking pretty different.
Right, makes sense.
So it's similar to what they did with the blades.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay, one more question. These challenge battles, would you say, having played some of these, are these definitely like geared towards people who have already beat the game? Like these are like very advanced like post-game content? Or do you think this is stuff that like, if you're just starting the game but you have the season pass, it just gives you more to do?
Right. So they do scale in difficulty. So some of them are definitely not going to be as bad. You can probably do some of them early on. But the later ones definitely do get hard to the point that you'd want to have some like semi-optimal endgame setups. It's not as hard as some of the Xenoblade 2 ones, which is, just how it is. You won't there hasn't been anything in the game so far that is quite as challenging as the hardest difficulty in Xenoblade 2, even for the challenge battles. But they're still pretty fun to play through.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it so far, and I always figure, when you get these big expansions, those are cool, but you never really know what you're gonna get with these like just smaller bits of content with these season passes. So I'm glad you seem positive on it overall.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said, it's not as much as what some of the previous game got in terms of expansions, but I think Xenoblade 3 also launched a lot more feature complete than Xenoblade 2 did. So
right.
I get it.
I agree.
You understand it. And they also made sure that everything...
they were trying to compensate. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's also a matter of, like, they made sure to advertise everything that was going to be in this wave of DLC before it came out. So, like, it's not like you're getting less than what they said you would get,
Yeah, no surprises,
right.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, glad to hear it. As far as myself, I've been playing quite a bit of games lately. The one that I'm playing on Switch right now is not one I can talk about quite yet. Hopefully next week. Yeah, I know. But one of the other games that I did beat recently was Spider-Man Miles Morales, which I was playing over on my PS5. Man, have you guys played those games? Because they are just some of the most fun games to play. Just like, at least to me. I mean, I enjoy like open world games, but most of the time, once I beat the main story, I find myself kind of losing steam. And like, I don't really need to do all the side stuff. But man, with these games, all the side content is just so fun, and it's all substantial for the most part. Like, yeah, you've got a couple like, collectibles and stuff, but I like, you're swinging through the city and it all just feels incredible, and you'll be going somewhere and then you'll get something on your radar being like, there's a break-in happening at a store nearby. Go stop it if you want. And you go, and the combat is just so much fun. Like I never get tired of the combat. There's so much depth, and it's all done so with such flair and style. the amount of detail that is just put into just every frame of animation is just incredible, and I had more fun like playing this game than I have watching some of the Marvel movies that I've seen recently. It feels like a better story with better visuals. So yeah, I can't recommend that game highly enough. If you haven't played it and you have a way to play it, definitely check it out.
As a Spider-Man fan, this game looks like perfect. Like I never played it because I don't have a PS4 or PS5, but now the game released on PC, and I'm just waiting for a discount on Steam, because at the moment it still is full price, and I don't play a lot on PC, so usually if I have a little time free, I'll buy the game and start playing it. But it just looked fantastic, the world that Insomniac created, and how the game is so... I just saw so many videos about how the game is so well crafted, how the way that Peter Parker speaks with other characters while he's swinging around the city, how it feels so natural to control the character. So, like, I'm super excited to finally play it, and I've only listened good things about it.
Yeah, I think it's really nice to hear. It's just really cool to hear positive opinions about the game, because not that I heard anything bad about it, but it feels like compared to the original Spider-Man for PS4, Miles Morales just didn't make as big of a splash. I feel like for the most part, I just didn't hear about it much after it released. Just, good sequel, and then we move on.
I think people treat it as an expansion, right? It is smaller than the main game, right?
It is. Yeah, it's definitely a shorter campaign for sure. It's the same like open world, so if you're playing this game back to back with the main game, you might get burned out. But it has been a couple of years since I played the original Marvel Spider-Man game for PS4, and so it felt more to me like I was revisiting a city that I'd already spent a lot of time in, which was kind of cool. And also this game, the season is different. It takes place in winter as opposed to fall, and so the aesthetics are very different. There's Christmas decorations everywhere, which is always fun to see in a game. There's different types of music playing, and but yeah, I think that was the main critique of this game, was like, it's a really good game, but it's very similar to the first game.
It's more of a good thing, basically.
Yes, more of a very, very good thing. I was playing on PS5, and I was playing it through... it's actually included in PlayStation's subscription service.
I see.
So I was like trying to get my money's worth out of that. And I was like, oh, go check out this game that I haven't played. And,
did you feel like there was a graphical upgrades compared to the original one on the PS4?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Sometimes
awesome.
it's I wouldn't say it's like as substantial maybe as some newer games that have come out, because this was a cross-gen game, and I think that shows to an extent. A lot of like the characters and models and stuff were built to also work on PS4, so nothing jaw-dropping, but I will say, like, normally I am totally fine playing games at 30 frames per second, but with this one I was like, I'm gonna throw it up to 60 frames and just see how that looks. And man, like, I really think that's the way to play this game. Like, when you're playing at a high frame rate like that, it feels so much smoother, and it's almost like a completely different game. So yeah, if you have a way to play it at that level of fidelity, I really recommend it. It's a great experience.
Nice.
So that's our show for the week, folks. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This has been episode 28 of Nintendo Everything Refresh. Wow, we're coming up on our next milestone, episode 30, right around the corner. Thank you, as always, to all of our listeners. We're trying to spread the word about our show, so if you really like what you heard, please spread the word. Follow us on whatever platforms are convenient for you. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. We're on like 10 different streaming platforms at this point, including YouTube, if you want to check out our video version in a convenient way. So thank you, as always, to all of you, and we will be back at you next week. Have a good one.